Hey, this is Zeklog the Great. So, when I was in high school, one year of high school, I think it was my senior year, it was the last day of class. It was the last class of the last day of class, and we were watching a movie. Because it's the last day, what are you actually going to do? And so we were watching a movie. The movie was The Usual Suspects, which, looking back now, I'm a little confused why we were watching The Usual Suspects at school. But, put that aside. Um, we were watching The Usual Suspects, and about 5 or 10 minutes before the end of the movie, the last bell rang. And about half of the class, got up and walked out, and about half the class maybe just stayed and wanted to finish watching the movie. They wanted to get out. They had summer coming, um, ready to go. I get it. I don't know if you haven't seen The Usual Suspects. I'm going to try not to spoil it for you here, but there's something that happens in the last 5 minutes or so that completely changes the movie. That completely changes how you see everything that happened before in the movie. And we finished watching it. Those of me and my friends who stayed, and it was really weird because it ended, and then we just kind of looked at each other, and we were like, the kids who just left, they have no idea. They have no idea what just about this movie. They saw an entirely different movie. Because they didn't see the end, and it changed everything. Uh, and it's not every book, not every movie, not every book does that, but there are books that do that where the last chapter, the last 5 10 minutes of the movie just completely changes everything. Our lives are stories. Um, there's a story going on all the time. There are stories we tell ourselves about our lives. And I told you that story just now because I realized just last night as I was going to bed, sometimes the difference between joy and despair is where you end the story, is where you stop. Uh, and sometimes hope just means keep turning the next page. Like if you were reading the story of Jesus, if you're reading the Gospels, okay, and you didn't know the story, and you're reading the story, and there's this great man, this great moral teacher, this prophet, this miracle worker, this healer. And if you're reading the story and you get to the execution, the crucifixion, and you stop after that, that's a story of despair and heartbreak. You saw this great man be viciously tortured to death by the Roman state at the prompting of the Jews. And if you stopped there, that's a terrible story. It's a heartbreaking, saddening story. But if you if you just turn the page, if you keep going, you find out that that's not the end of the story. That, shortly, just a few days later, that he came back to life and appeared to his friends. And not only did he come back to life, that he came back because he is the Son of God. And not only did he come back to life and that he is the Son of God, but that he told them and he told us that he is a preview. That if we follow him, that if we trust in him, that death isn't going to hold on to us either. And that if we follow him, we can be adopted as his brothers and sisters. That we can be the adopted sons and daughters of God. It's a totally different story. If you're reading, The Lord of the Rings, if you're reading The Lord of the Rings and you're reading the Two Towers. I think that's in the Two Towers. But if you're reading up to the part where Shelob, where Sam finds Frodo after Shelob had stung him and he'd been bound up, and Sam takes the ring and he's like, well, I guess I got to do this myself. And you close the book and you're like, oh, I'm done here, I guess. That's an awful ending. Because Sam isn't going to get there alone. I mean, he's got all kinds of courage, but he's not going to get there alone, and Frodo just died, and what was the point of this whole thing? But that's not the end of the story. And if you just turn the page, if you keep going, you find out that Frodo seemed dead, but he was actually going to be okay. And that, Sam, bravely, went into this guard tower and rescued him. And they made it the whole way through Mordor, and the ring was destroyed, and Sauron fell, and the peoples of Middle-earth were free and safe again, for a time at least. So what's my point? Like I said, sometimes hope means just turn the next page. Whatever is going on, however bleak it is, however terrible things are, and for instance, our country right now, it's not in great shape. I've had some setbacks in my personal life, but it's not the end of the story if you don't make it the end. Keep turning the next page, because you don't know what's coming. And what's coming next could change everything about the rest of the story. It could take all of this pain and confusion and frustration and make clear why it all happened. So, not especially complex, not especially, intellectual message, but maybe it's something you needed to hear. Don't give up hope. Keep turning the next page. Because the story is not over. And only God knows what's coming next. God be with you.